right. Tiny Housinʼ, volume 15? I don't know. I totally got it wrong yesterday, or on the last video. Someone was asking me, why do I keep posting the videos in the morning or something like that? And my response to that is, I record them at the end of the day, and YouTube takes forever for the videos to upload. So I'm at the mercy of whatever speed YouTube wants to allow the videos to upload. Doesn't matter where I am. I've used enough internet connections to upload videos to YouTube to know that the speed at which they go up is determined by YouTube and not your internet connection. So sometimes I hit upload at 8 o'clock at night and they don't. I wake up in the morning to find out it uploaded. I don't. Could have been 3 in the morning for all I know. I don't know. Most of the days in Jamestown, I would record those videos at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and hit the upload button around 9 a.m. when I got to the library. And sometimes those things wouldn't finish uploading till like 3 in the afternoon. And I'd be doing other things. It wasn't the only thing that I was doing all day. But it's just, I don't know. Their servers are slow, whatever. You've got millions and millions of people pushing up videos all at the same time. So it's probably just some sort of bandwidth limit that they set. Let's see, today, I'll get into it. I'll do a face forward video here in a minute. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Adam, back at you. It is Tiny Housinʼ, volume 15, I think. I didn't look. I barely know what day it is right now. This was my 6th, 7th, 8th, well, technically the 8th 40-mile bicycle commute in 2 weeks. I'm done. I'm done for the next 3 days. I don't have to do it. It was cold today. Somebody left me a comment on the last video that it's 34 is nothing. It's a high of -6 in here in Minnesota. Well, yeah, that's why I don't live in Minnesota. My God, there's way too many Democrats in Minnesota. There's no way. You couldn't, between the frigid cold and the Democrats, you couldn't pay me. I wouldn't even move there if someone were offered me a job for $1 million a year right now. I wouldn't move there. I'd rather make $25,000 a year here in Houston. So, no. Put it this way. When Ronald Reagan won in a landslide in 1984, guess what state was the only state that Ronald Reagan lost? Minnesota. Oh yeah. Like anybody in their right mind would want to live in that hellhole. And I know it's a hellhole because I've been there. I've been to Minneapolis before. I've been around the state. There's no way I'd ever want to live there. During the 2020, during the COVID scam, that was one of the most masked up vaccine pushing hellholes around. There's no fucking way I'd live there. So yeah, today, another 40-mile ride, back-breaking labor. The day went by quick. I said a nice little prayer right before I got into work today that, no drama, no issues. And it was actually a really, really pleasant day. Really nice ride into work. Frigid. Those new shoe covers did the trick. Oh, thank God. If I didn't wear those, my previous rides were only 5 miles each. So that was like a 15-minute ride. And it was quick. It was easy. I didn't have time to get cold. So I didn't really have to break out with the warm weather gear. But today, 20 miles in 34 degrees. I wasn't taking any chances. I had 3 layers up top, 3 layers below, shoes, shoe covers. I had full finger gloves, the band going around my ears. I was about as warm as you could be. Still, I mean, it was tolerable. But by the time I got there, I was still, I just wasn't. When it's cold like this, I'm not breaking any records. I'm not getting any good speed. But it was a nice day. The bakery was nice. Everybody was cool. It was laid back. We have some really good stuff this week. Had some tres leches. I had a Reese's peanut butter pie. Oh my God, that thing was like straight up. I could feel the diabetes moving through my body after I ate that thing. Oh my God, there were more cookies. I couldn't even eat another bite of sugar after that thing. Yeah, so I mean, I'm burning 2,000 calories per ride. It's like probably 4,000 calories a day, but I'm eating at least 2 in sugar at the bakery before I come home. So I don't know. It's not the best job when you're trying to get in shape. That's for sure. Peaceful ride in, no drama at all. Sun came out, which happens sometimes when it's cold. You know, the high pressure is moving in, so the temperature went down, but at least it wasn't raining. The wind wasn't really a factor. Spent decent part of the day lifting, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 pounds worth of flour and sugar, heavy ass boxes of chocolate chips, 50-pound boxes of chocolate chips, and man, if you like chocolate, man, it's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in the back of that bakery, man. It's like, I feel like an Oompa Loompa running around all day, stacking boxes of chocolate and sugar. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, nice, tranquil bike ride home for the most part. I did see another blue Subaru WRX, same goddamn car I see every day now. But this one didn't try to run me over, so that's a step up. In fact, the shield of Christ must have been so strong around me today that car was on, like, that car got all the way over to the left lane to pass me and was like, I don't even want to get anywhere near this guy. The power of Christ will put me in the ditch if I get too close to him. So that was nice. To get honked at one time in a residential neighborhood that I ride through, where this bitch there's 2 lanes on each side of the road, and I was in the right lane and there were no other cars. She could have easily passed me without honking her horn. She had to lay on the fucking horn. Sometimes these suburban cocksuckers just get mad that you're on their fucking road. Like, they act like they're entitled to that road and it's just for them and it's not for you. And so sometimes people just get mad at the fact that you're out there on a bicycle. And they just gotta and like scream and yell at you, even though there's no other cars on the road. It's just me and her, and we each have a whole fucking lane of the road. A whole lane. And it's like a neighborhood where the speed limit's 20 miles an hour, so I'm not even like holding this bitch back from getting home from work or whatever the fuck's going on. So as she's passing me, blaring on the horn, I'm just like, fuck you, cunt. And so she got mad about being called a cunt, had to roll down her window, and we had to scream and yell at each other across the fucking cul-de-sac. And then I turned to go down the bicycle trail, and I'm like, peace out, cunt. These fucking people in Houston are fucking douchebags on the road. I fucking hate all of you fucking assholes on the road. But then again, it's not every single person that goes past me that's being an asshole. It's just I've never ridden in a city in my life where there's so many of them. So many douchebags. I've never seen the level of douchebaggery on the roads that I see here in Houston. And I mean, let me just name cities off the top of my head that I've ridden my bicycle in, starting from the northeast and working my way down. Boston, Massachusetts, Rochester, New York, Buffalo, New York. I could even say Jamestown, New York. I've been all over New York. All over New York. New York City, Manhattan, Long Island. I've rode my bike in Pittsburgh, obviously, Philadelphia, all the way across Pennsylvania from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia, from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C., and back. Let's see, Baltimore. What other cities? You could go all the way down to Miami, St. Louis. I could throw in Houston now. Let's see, I could say Asheville, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, Charlotte. I could say, I don't know, I'm just randomly picking cities. I mean, I've been all over the country, and I take my bicycle a lot, especially when I'm on a photography trip, because I can park someplace just outside the city or in a safe neighborhood, let's say, where I don't got to worry about my vehicle being smashed up, put on blocks, and getting broken into. And then I can hop on a bicycle and fly around town with a couple of cameras, get some good photography without having to worry about driving and finding a place to park all the time. That's one reason. And another reason is it's fun. Let's see, Virginia. All the city, Richmond, Virginia. Ocean City, Maryland, all the way down, up and down that area. I've been all over the country, especially east of the Mississippi River, and had my bicycle with me and ridden in cities all over the place. And yeah, there's douchebags everywhere. I'd say Washington, D.C. has a high number of douchebags. Buffalo, New York has a high number of douchebags. Those are the ones that stood out to me in the past. I wouldn't even put Philadelphia on as high on the douchebag list as Buffalo and Washington, D.C. Not even Manhattan. Not even Manhattan is as bad as either of those places. But Houston's like a whole nother fucking ball game, people. Houston's got to be the worst place on... Houston has to be the worst place in the United States to ride a bicycle. I cannot imagine that there's a place worse than this to ride a bicycle. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine that there's a place worse than Houston, Texas to ride a bicycle. Tell me where. Tell me what's worse. Tell me a worse place to ride a bicycle than Houston, Texas. I've seen YouTube videos that back me up on this, that say Houston is the worst place to ride a bicycle. That it's the worst. It's one of the worst cities to drive in because everybody on the road's a fucking douchebag. But anyway, not every single person, but just the ratio of them is so high. Like I do get an occasional ride to work. It seems like but I'm going early in the morning. I'm leaving at 6:30 in the morning to get there. So I don't know. It's just one horn honking argument on the way home. I'll count that as a good day, I guess. Other than that, it was a pretty peaceful ride. A lot of headwind, but it really didn't. It was a little bit slower on the stretches that were due south. The headwind can really mess with you, especially on the flat. Like Houston is very flat. There's a couple of little undulations here and there on my way to and from, where I might even have to get up and stand out of the saddle to to keep my speed up. But there's nothing that I would call an actual hill here, anywhere in Houston. because I lived in Pittsburgh, and that's a hilly city. Pittsburgh is hilly as hell. And then if you were in the mountains, and Pittsburgh's not even a mountainous, you have to go about 2 hours east of Pittsburgh to get into the mountains, or southeast of Pittsburgh to get into the mountains. There's some definite good sized mountains between Pittsburgh and Washington, D.C. for sure. The bicycle trail that goes from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. cuts through the Appalachian Mountains on railroad grades. So the steepness is never more than like a 2% grade, even at the steepest parts of it, because it's a railroad. It's a former railroad. And they've made this trail so nice that it's the number one passage to get across the Appalachian Mountains when you're on a cross-country bicycle trip. So you're constantly seeing people along that trail that I've met lots and lots of people on my trips, on my bike rides from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. I've met a lot of people who are cross-country cyclists who are either on their way west. Most people go west to east. It's a lot more popular to go west to east than east to west, just because the predominant winds in the country are behind you if you're going east. That doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to have a tailwind, especially in the Great Plains and the flat areas of the country. And when you're in the mountains, the wind, you don't even care about the wind anymore, because it's all about the hills at that point. The wind is not as big of a factor when you're in hill country. But most people who cross the United States on a bicycle, a lot of them tend to use the Great Allegheny Passage and the C&O Canal Trail to get from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C., because it cuts through the Appalachian Mountains and it feels like it's flat the whole way. It's very, very subtle grade the whole entire way through. And compared to the Rocky Mountains, cycling through the Rocky Mountains, there's a few passages, and the passes are long. You're basically going to spend, as you get through the major passes in the Rocky Mountains, you're going to spend maybe 2-3 days pedaling uphill at like maybe a 10% grade. You're going to be pedaling uphill at a fairly steep grade for 3 straight days, just losing your mind. And this is if you're on a cross-country ride. But when you hit the Continental Divide and you start going downhill, you're going to cover the same amount of distance that took you 3 days to go up in about 45 minutes on the way down. And then you're going to be in the Great Plains. You're literally going to go from the mountains to flats. Almost, it's just going to be one big giant climb followed by a big long ball breaking descent. And then that's it. You're through the Rockies. But in the Appalachian Mountains, it's different. The roads that go through the Appalachian Mountains go up and down and 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 up and down. And they basically go up and down every single mountain. So there's no real passes to get from one side to the other. What you'll find is as you approach the Appalachian Mountains, the terrain just starts to undulate higher and higher. You start climbing and descending and climbing and descending and climbing and descending and climb and descend and climb and descend. And you just end up climbing mountain after 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 mountain. And it gets old, and you get to the top of one mountain and you see a bunch more mountains in the distance, and you got to go down into the valley and then up the next mountain and then down into the valley and up the next mountain and down into the valley. And sometimes you get lucky and you can follow a river, but it's just, they're windy. There's no straight way through. You can follow a river for a while and cut through some of the mountains that way. But you're going distance-wise, you're taking, long detours. But if you can keep your speed up, because the river valleys are flat, that makes up for the extra distance. But it's hard to get through the Appalachian Mountains on a bicycle. if you're crossing the country. So a lot of people head to Pittsburgh as they're going across the country, get on that Great Allegheny Passage, and basically cut like a hot knife through butter through the entire Appalachian Mountain Range, come down into Cumberland, Maryland, and take the Potomac River all the way to Washington, D.C. on another trail called the C&O Canal Trail. And once you're in Washington, D.C., you can ride all the way to, you're basically in the flats. If you stay east of the Appalachian Mountains, it's going to be flat. You could ride all the way down to Florida and not really encounter any major hills at that point. And so that's why people do it. So it's a very popular route. But here in Houston, it's flat, which is kind of nice when you're coming home from work and you just want to chill. You just want to chill. I don't need, there were days in Pittsburgh. I used to live in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, and I could take creek. Sawmill Run is the name of the creek. It's called Sawmill Run Boulevard, and it is a nasty, nasty, dangerous road for a bicyclist. People thought I was nuts taking that road, but it was all flat, and not only flat, it was just slightly downhill. So I could keep my speed up to 25, 30 miles an hour all the way down that road, all the way into downtown, all the way to my goodness, how do I not? Wow. Wow, all the way to the river. All the way to the three rivers, where the three rivers come together. And the Ohio River. The Allegheny River, the Monongahela River meet in downtown Pittsburgh at a place called Point State Park. There's a big fountain where the two rivers come together and they form the Ohio River. That's why it's called the Three Rivers. Three Rivers Stadium used to be right there. It's now Heinz Field or whatever the fuck, some dumbass name it's got now. But it's always going to be known as Heinz Field if you're from there, because nobody gives a shit about the new dumb name that it has. So this road goes all the way down to the Ohio River. And then I've got to cross a bridge to get into downtown, but the entire ride is flat. But it's like 9 miles or something like that. And it would take me about half an hour or so to get to work. But coming home, that's not a good way to come home. The traffic's even worse, and there's no real benefit anymore for taking that road, because it's flat, but it's got like just a slight uphill stint. And so I'm not going to be able to go 25, 30 miles an hour all the way down to get home. So there's a big giant hill in between me and my house. And however I want to approach that hill, there were, multiple options. There were probably 8 different ways I could go to get home, all going up and over that hill. It's just choose your pain. Some of the hills are less steep, but take longer to climb because the distance is longer. Some of the hills are like a staircase, but you're going to get to the top really fast because it's literally just straight up. So it depends on, my fitness level that day and how I feel and how, just a number of factors. Like maybe I'm bored and I just want to take a different way. But there were some major, major climbs between downtown Pittsburgh and my house, this major hill. And the distance would be like 7 miles to get home, but it would take like 45 minutes to do it. So it would take longer to go the more direct way just because there's that big hill in the middle. So Houston doesn't have any hills, but the wind can be a factor. I am north. The job is northeast west of where I live, and then I have to go southeast to get back home. And so it kind of, the roads either go southeast or south, and then southeast or south, and then or east, due east and south. So anytime I'm going directly south today, I have a headwind just kind of beating on me, and it was kind of holding me back speed wise. And it's the difference on the flats. On flat terrain, a strong headwind can, if you're normally going 20 miles an hour on a normal day with no wind, 25 with the wind to your back, when the wind is coming directly at your face, you might get knocked down to 12 miles an hour, putting out the same level of effort, but your speed drops in half because you've got, a 20 mile an hour wind banging on you the whole time. So that's one thing that Houston does in terms of like cycling. The whole time I lived in Pittsburgh, I never paid much attention to the wind. The wind was never really a factor in Pittsburgh. It could get windy. It's pretty mild in terms of wind there most days, but even if there was a really strong wind in Pittsburgh, you really don't notice when you're out on the bicycle because you're either going up a hill or down a hill. And the wind rarely comes into play and becomes a factor. It's the hills that really determine how fast you're going to get from point A to B. But here in Houston, the wind is a big factor. It makes a big difference because everything's flat. So yeah, it was a pretty decent ride home. I get 3 days to just chill. I gotta shave. I gotta clean up when I'm done with this video. I'm rough. I'm feeling it. I want to try and get cleaned up tonight so that tomorrow I feel refreshed and like a new person, and I can sleep in a little bit, hopefully. I know the probation officers could be doing his semi-surprise visit sometime in the next few days. I basically have to give him a window, and I'm telling him, well, I'm home Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but he's not going to just say, hey, I'll be over on Wednesday at noon or whatever. No, I'll get a random text message, probably early in the morning. Hey, we're coming over today. Are you going to be there? That kind of thing. And, they don't want you to have too much time to put your drugs and your guns in hiding. You know what I'm saying? Like when they want to be able to like pop in and be like, hey, when the dude came to visit me in Buffalo, he definitely didn't give me any warning. He just showed up one day, boom, boom, boom on the door. I was like, well, that must be the dude. And I was expecting him, but you never know when, is all I'm saying. So that'll be nice. I hope I get that out of the way sooner than later. Because it would just be nice to have. It's going to be nice having a few days to recover from the cycling and just get my mind back in order, because man, I'm shot out. I'm totally shot out right now, man. It's unreal how burned out I am from all of this. But I signed up for it. It's no big deal. It's over. I got through it. I got some good mileage for my 2,000 mile goal, and this is what it is. Trying to think, there was just one more thing I was going to talk about, and I was thinking about it just now, and then it left my mind. Oh, I did have a little tidbit. I was, as you're riding along on your bike, you'll see things laying on the side of the road. And you can get some cool shit sometimes. And so today, I was riding down this one road on my way home, and I look over, I'm like, is that what I thought it was? And I'm like, so I had to stop. I'm like, hey, why not? The wind is in my face. I need to take a break. So I pull over, I turn around, I walk back, and sure enough, there's a really nice pair of pliers just laying in the road, on the side of the road. Klein Tools. I don't even know if that's a good brand. But it's a nice set of pliers. There's some surface rust that you can see, but that'll come off with like 2 minutes of rubbing some steel wool on that. A little bit of WD-40 will help with that. I can spend 5 minutes on these and get these things looking brand spanking new, like I just bought them at Home Depot. The rust that you see is like that'll pretty much rub off with my finger almost. It's very light rust. It's just been laying on the side of the road for who knows how long, getting rained on. That's all. But they're nice. They're like nice needle nose pliers. They've got a set of wire strippers in them. And then they've got a crimping thing here. There's like, I don't know what I'll use, a little crimping tool. And but they're pretty heavy duty. Like, that's a nice find right there. I don't know what they'd cost at Home Depot, but shit, man, it was a nice little bonus. Nice little bonus to pick up on my way home. A free pair of pliers to throw in my tool bag. I'm rebuilding my tool collect because I lost all my tools when the FBI drove a tank into my house. So every time, if I find a free set of badass pliers on the side of the road, you're damn right I'm going to stop and pick them up. There was a tape measure. It's like someone's toolbox must have been open in the back of a truck and tools were just bouncing out of it, because a little bit further down the road there's a tape measure laying, and I stopped again. There's a tape measure laying on the side of the road, but it was mangled. It was bad. It was like all broken apart, and the tape part was further down the road, like it had been run over by 20 cars or who knows what. So that was shot out. That wasn't a worthwhile pickup. But I kept my eyes open, because I'm like, if there must be a whole toolbox worth of tools as I'm riding down this road if I'm lucky and I can pick them all up. But it was just the pliers, unfortunately. And maybe someone else picked up the other tools. I don't know. But it's kind of funny that you can just, when you're driving, you're not even going to notice stuff like that. But when you're on a bicycle, you'll be like, what was that? Was that what no. I'm like, that's worth stopping for. And I turn around and sure enough, boom. Boom. Nice freaking free pair of pliers. So, I don't know, man. They'll come in handy one of these days, and I'll be like, I'm so glad I picked up those pliers that day, because, man, like maybe I'll have a wire that I have to strip in the next month or so, and I'll be like, thank God I picked up those pliers. I've got a wire stripper right here. So that's great. I can't wait to clean those up and make them look brand new again. And I swear, I just need a little bit of steel wool, which I don't have. But next time I go to Target, if I go to Boxmart Church on Sunday, because I didn't last weekend, but if the weather cooperates, I'm planning on going. It's at 11:30 in the morning, and there's really no excuse to not go to Boxmart Church over in the strip mall across the way. But there's really no excuse for me not to go. I honestly could look into the Lutheran church and see what time their service is. And maybe I could go to both on Sunday. See which ones. The Lutheran church, the one thing I see out front, they got this big sign where they've got like exercise classes on 2 nights a week. And I think it says they're free. Big like billboard or something, like go work out twice a week with a group of people for free. So maybe go to both churches. If one service is at 9 and the other's at 11:30, maybe go check them both out. Why not? They're literally right next door to each other. It would be like 4 minutes to walk from one to the other. Might be something to do. Maybe I could meet some cool people. Who knows? But I'm definitely going to check that out. When I lived in Jamestown in that horrid apartment before everything went to shit, there were 2 churches. One was right across the street. One was a little bit ways down the road. Like, I I don't know, half mile maybe. I found out that the services were staggered so I could go to the one church on Sunday, and then when that service was over, I could just walk back, go to the other church, and the other church was just getting like I would get there like 5-10 minutes before that church started. So I just decided I'll go to both on Sunday. Keeps me out of the apartment, gives me something to do. I was meeting some people. It was actually I was meeting some what seemed to be some good people and whatnot, but when everything happened the way it did, it just put the kibosh on that. Plus, the ex, she didn't want me meeting people in the neighborhood. Like, she didn't want to be associated with like that fucking ex-con that just came. I was being treated like I was a fucking child molester who just showed up to the neighborhood after getting out of prison. And, we can't, I'm gonna, there's gonna be a dot on the fucking map. This fucking, there's a predator here in the neighborhood and I don't want to be associated with him. Because I got 2 years in prison for a mean tweet. So... And it literally was one post that did it. When the prosecutor came up with all these extra trumped up charges, they knew that the other ones wouldn't hold up. But they did it to make it harder to fight the one that they were actually charging me with. And so, I don't know, maybe I'll do a series in tandem with Tiny Housinʼ, and maybe branch off and do another playlist on this channel where I talk only about the case and what happened. I have all my court papers here. I might reach out to the lawyer and get some electronic stuff sent to me that can you send me this, that, and the other thing, and just some paper, just some PDF files and stuff. I don't want to have some huge download of, gigabytes worth of stuff. But there's a bunch of stuff that would be easy for them to send, and I could probably get it done with just one email, and then I could just gather all that stuff and just kind of talk about the thing from beginning to end and just do part 1, part 2, part 3, and just, maybe do it as a series. And then, then I get a chance to tell my side of the story from beginning to end. Because there's a lot in that story. I've shared a lot of it on these videos on this channel, but I've never just put it all together from beginning to end and just talked about that without, branching off into 10 other stories per video. So that's something I'm thinking about doing. And I'm just gonna, one day at a time right now. So with that said, I gotta get something to drink. I gotta get a snack. I gotta get some clothes put away. I gotta try, and I got my place a little bit tidied up last night, but not enough. And I want to get to the point where I can use my new little reusable Swiffer mop thing, whatever it's called, and with the reusable pads, and get this floor a little bit cleaner. It'll be cleaner than even when I moved in once I'm done. But I don't expect to get much done tonight, but I do need to shave. This is driving me nuts. And I don't know. Next videos will be a little more structured. I might take a day. I might not do a video tomorrow. I've got 3 days. I've got to do all kinds of crap. But I might do a more structured video where I take some notes and actually kind of talk about some stuff that, whatever comes up, instead of just rambling for half an hour. But for now, I'm going to let you all go. And I did have someone reach out to me today about wanting to donate money to the channel, to me, for what, even though even though I got a place to live and all that kind of stuff. There's people making millions of dollars on YouTube who collect donations. So I'm just going to leave my digital chicken bucket up, and that's at donate.litgood.com. That's the best way to do it. I don't have Venmo, Cash App, or none of those apps. I can't run any of those apps on my phone because I use a operating system called Graphene OS, and none of these financial apps work on a Graphene OS phone. It's hard to explain why. I will be getting an Android phone at some point. I may even get another PayPal account because it's going to be hard to get paid from some of my photography work if I don't have PayPal. The other options that they have for payment, they suck. And it's like I'm kind of my hand is being forced against my will here, but I'm trying to have multiple streams of income, and stock photography is one stream. I don't make a lot. I really don't make much at all on that, but it's one of those things that if I could find the time to do it more regularly, if I could dedicate 10 to 30 hours a week on that over the span of a year or two, it would actually turn into something. And I have enough photography to build a good library on these stock sites, thousands of photographs. I know a guy who had just a few hundred photographs, and he was making 150 to 200 a month off of his sales from having like 300 photos on one stock photo site. So if I had 3,000 photographs for sale on, but it takes a lot of time to get those images up there approved and go through the process of doing it. It's a lot of work for very little return. It's the same as YouTube, but it's one of those things that you're going to put in a lot of work for a long time and make absolutely nothing. But then at some point, you might get to the point where you're making hundreds of dollars a month or more. And all of those photos just keep selling themselves over time, because once you get them on your store or on the sites, you don't have, each one's like a little tink. You don't have to do it again. And so it's just like putting a penny in a jar. Each time you put a penny in the jar, you don't got to do it again. And it's like an investment. It's almost like an investment portfolio where you're investing a penny at a time. And so, yeah, it's going to take forever, but eventually you'll start getting dividends, and then those dividends go back into the same account, and then your pennies, they just start adding up over time and multiplying over time. And I do know people who are successful doing that. I know people who are very, very successful selling prints on things like Etsy in their own stores and using social media and all that stuff. It's just a lot of time. A lot of time. And I'm just juggling too many things. I got to really find a way to escape the drudgery and the physical labor of this bakery. You know, I'm trying to get a job at a bicycle shop as a mechanic part-time. That would be a game changer in terms of my energy level. But it wouldn't pay a lot. It might pay more than the bakery, but I'm also trying to find a 6-figure software design job. I keep working on that bit by bit. I'm building a freelance business. I'm working on my photography. I'm working on building YouTube content, and I want to branch out and do more of that. Obviously, one person can't do all of those things effectively and actually be able to spend the time every week that it takes to build all of those things into something major. I'm already logging 80 plus hours of being productive time every week right now. And 80 hours isn't enough to do all of those things at the same time. So I'm just kind of trying to inch the ball forward on lots of different things at once. And right now, I got to buckle down for the next 3 days and get some other things done. And these other things that I'm getting done should open up opportunities for me to maybe only work at the bakery a couple of days a week and use that as like grocery money, or just make it grocery money or something like that, and just keep trying to find something to replace those 2 days so I never have to go back again. something more lucrative there. So it's just, I don't know. It's like a lot of people said in the comments. I'm a little frustrated because I need things to move. I need to be able to be in a position where if my son wanted to come and live with me, I want to be able to provide him a place that he could be comfortable and do that if he wants to. That's my goal. I'm not going to be like, I want to give him the option that if he wants to do that, I would be there to do that for him. But I can't do it where I'm at right now. I can't do it at the level of income I'm at right now. I can't, my toilet is next to my fucking kitchen. And it's next to my sink and it's next to my bed. Like, and that's the best I can do right now. I looked at 2 places in person, and I had 4 places picked out after all the research that I had done, and I was going to go look at another one, but then this tiny house popped up, and it seemed like it just was calling me. It seemed like a better deal than the other one. May as well talk about that for a minute, and then I'll shut the video off. Because a lot of people ask me, why did you choose to live in this little tiny house with the toilet right in the middle of the room and the unfinished ceiling and all of that? And so here are the 4. Now, I live in one of the richest parts of Houston right now. Or that's where my friend lives. So, okay, so if I want to rent something around that's near him, $4,000 a month, I can rent a house in that same neighborhood. $4,000 a month. There were some little like cabin style houses down the road, and like yuppie uppity cabin type housing in a little complex. From what I looked at, those were like $2,000 a month, and it was full of last month's rent, proof of income. Income needs to be 3 times the rent every month. We're going to do a background check. We're going to do all this other stuff. And it's like a big property management company. I won't do property management companies to rent a property. That's not ever been something I was ever willing to do. They want too much shit from you up front. They're too expensive. And then when something breaks, they never fix it. And they're a pain in the ass to deal with. And if you're one day late on rent, you're getting evicted. So it's just a systematic douchebaggery. There's a lot of rich people apartments around that neighborhood. You're looking at $2,000-$3,000 a month. I'm looking for less than $1,000 a month. So my options were extremely limited. There was a lot of areas of Houston that I could find a place. But they're far. I don't have a car. I can't just go drive around looking for things. I need to be able to keep a job. I need to be able, I'm geographically bound to some extent to this area. So my friend was willing to drive me around to look at places, but I still had to be able to go, how far am I going to have to ride to get to this job, at least for the first, month, maybe 2. Till I can find a job closer to the place. So, the first place that I got in touch with an owner to go look at was a cabin. It was bigger than this. But it was still kind of like a tiny house cabin, but it was like a camp. And the whole area, it was up by what's called Lake Conroe, and there was lake access from this cabin. There are these little channels that come off the lake and wind back to where all these cabins are. And it had the feel, I went on Google Street View, it had the feel of a campground. It felt like driving around on Google Street View, it felt like the Allegheny National Forest where people have these little camp cities set up. And they all got cabins on a 1/4 acre of land, and they're all right next to each other, and they're all just, that's what it seemed, that's what it felt like. It had a big open room that was bigger than this tiny house. When you walked in, full size fridge, really nice propane stove oven combo, like cast iron grills on top, like a really modern, really nice oven and stove combo. A few other things, and then it said that it had a washer and dryer. I didn't know where they were, other than there was like a little shed next to the building, next to the cabin, and maybe the washer and dryer are in that shed. I just didn't know. And then there was another room off the back of that would be like a bedroom or something. You could close it off with a curtain or some sort of accordion door or something like that. I don't know if it had a door. And then there was another room behind. That was like a shotgun house. That was the style. Just a long shotgun house style. One room, then another small room, then a bathroom. But a bathroom, an actual bathroom with a shower and a tub and a toilet and, the sink and everything else. And then the kitchen area had its own sink, full-size fridge, like I said, propane stove. Talked to the owner of the house. Electric is the only utility. I don't know if water was included, but they didn't say anything about water. Maybe it had a well. I don't know. The stove, because I know, I'm like, is that that doesn't look like an electric stove. And he goes, oh, it's propane. It runs off of you can hook up a 20-gallon, or, the 20-pound propane tanks that you buy at the gas station. Like, this is literally someone's camp that I could rent up on the lake and have access to the lake where I could just drop a kayak in the water and go out kayaking or get a canoe or whatever. That was kind of cool. It was $850 a month, plus electric, plus having to find a way to get propane tanks for the stove. That could be a pain in the ass, but I do know that a propane tank like that will last a while. I would probably get like 4 at a time and just leave them there. And as 2 of them go empty, go down to the store and exchange them. But like without a vehicle, that was going to be. But I wasn't worried about that. So I get in touch with now this is a property man. The guy who I'm talking to is not the owner of the property, so he says. And so I said, I schedule a time to come up and see the property. And he keeps feeding me this line. Well, right when it was time to come and see the property on a Saturday, I get a message from him like an hour before I'm supposed to go up there. And he starts saying the tenant that's living in there right now, who's moving out on the 1st of February, which is when I needed to move, he isn't giving us permission to go inside. So I can meet you there and you can see it from the outside, but I can't let you see the inside. And I'm like, yo, no, fuck that. That's like there's so many scams on social media for apartments and housing and shit like that. And that's one of the things that they'll do is, now most of the scams are easy to spot. If you see a bunch of photographs of a house that should cost $5,000 a month to rent, you see marble countertops, marble backsplashes, you see, a chandelier in a giant living room with a balcony, and, you see like a stonework out front and a beautiful sidewalk and all, you just see all this stuff, and then it says $600 a month. You can pretty much rest assured that that's a fucking scam. So don't even respond to that. But this one seemed like a legitimate listing. And so, but now the guy, I told the guy, I said, well, I don't respond very well to scams. That I literally told him that I felt like he was trying to scam me because he was starting to act shady. And so now he's sending me all this shit about how he's a real estate agent, and he's sending me links to the real estate website, and there he was listed as an agent of that real estate agency. And I'm like, okay, fine. And he said he's just the property manager. He's the one who manages the property for the the owner and collects the rent and does all the stuff and make sure, basically he's a property manager for that property, and he's got other properties that he manages. He's got properties he's trying to sell and blah, 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 this and that. Anyway, there was a degree of legitimacy to that, but I was like, we're not doing this unless I could come take a look in the inside of the property, period. Now, in reality, maybe the tenant got into a dispute with the guy or the owner of the property, or maybe something happened and the guy was like, I'm just going to be a dick and not grant permission for anybody to come inside until I'm gone, just to be a dick. Maybe the owner's an asshole. Maybe something happened and the guy was like, I'm just going to be as much of a dick as I can, not let anybody in here and make it hard for this owner to rent the property out. But on the flip side, this could have been just somebody scamming me. Oh, come and meet me at the property, but we can't go inside, but I'll have all the leases and the contracts and everything, and all you got to do is give me money, and then I'll disappear and you'll never hear from me again, and I'll have your money. Fuck that. If he could let me inside, if you have a bona fide key to get inside the place and we go in there, and then I see some legitimate paperwork and whatnot, and I also would have had, at this point, I would have had to call the real estate company, and I would have had to verify that this guy's legitimate, that this property's legitimate, and I would have gone through the trouble to do that. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what, fuck this. And so there's a lot of crappy ass options, tons and tons and tons. It's really difficult on Facebook Marketplace, for example, to find properties that aren't, and this is in general because that app is a shit show. If you use the map and you try and find properties by looking around on the map, 99 out of 100 will be a room for rent in someone's home, like a room for rent in someone's house, not an actual apartment, not an actual private space. I can't really do that because I'm on probation. What am I going to do? Go to someone and be like, oh, by the way, I'm on probation, and the cops can show up and go rummaging through your shit anytime they want. Are you cool with that? No, it's not going to work. Plus, I just don't want to I don't want to be someone's fucking roommate either. I want my own space. So it's hard. You can't filter those out on these apps. Craigslist is full of scams. Facebook Marketplace and any of the other apartment searches or housing searching apps out there, they're only going to show you commercial management company apartment complexes, and those are pretty much out of the question for me because it's going to be background check, income verification, credit check, all these other things that go with renting from some property management company. So my options were Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. Craigslist was full of scams. That was really hard to find anything on that seemed even remotely legit, but that's where I found the tiny house that I'm in right now. So it was a needle in the haystack. It was a diamond in the rough. It was actually the only thing I saw on Craigslist that was even worth calling. The other options, the one that I talked about, I went and looked at in person. It was a double wide, 80 feet long. It was huge. It was $750 a month, plus electric, plus water, plus internet, all the other, but the water and electric were the utilities. It was a fucking dump. I mean, it was so disgusting and dirty and dumpy that I don't think I could even make it clean. I don't think there was nothing I could do. The bathrooms were so disgusting, and the bathroom in the Saw movie was cleaner than the fucking bathrooms in this fucking trailer. One of the showers was missing, just had a pipe coming out the wall with nothing. There was no electricity turned on, no water turned on in the place. So I couldn't check to see if anything actually worked, number one. And from the looks of the place, I doubt anything did work. There were bare wires hanging out of all the walls, wires hanging out of the fucking ceiling and shit. It kind of looked like if they did turn the electric on, the place might just catch on fire instantly. Like it might just burn up when they turn the electric on. It was on a shared property. The owner lived in another trailer right next door to the trailer that I'd be living in. The yard was full of broken down cars that this guy was like fixing up and selling. And it was all completely fenced in with a bunch of chickens running around the yard. And so anytime I come home from work or whatever, I got to open up a gate and be careful that none of the chickens run out, walk across the yard, say hello to the owner of the property, go to this dumpy ass trailer that's about to collapse and burn to the ground. That's just completely fucking disgusting. But it was huge. Huge. It was 80 feet long. It was something, however many feet wide. It had a room I could use for an office. It had 2 bedrooms, or it had 2 bathrooms. It had a big ass kitchen / living room combo with another hallway going down to 2 or 3 more bedrooms. And at the end of the thing, the 1 bedroom at the very end had washing machine and dryer hookups, and you know, that was like the utility room with the hot water tank and all that kind of stuff. But this place looked like it was falling apart, and it seemed like from talking to the owner that he didn't give a fuck. And he was like, I could just tell that if something's broken, he's not gonna fix it. He's just gonna be like, whatever. The kind of place that you would rent to undocumented people who aren't gonna complain to the government when their house is a wreck because they don't want to get deported, especially now. Okay, so that was option number 2. And I was gonna do it because of my clock was running out. And that was the only thing I found so far that I could actually do. Now, another thing that people are doing here, and I guess Texas has absolutely no fucking like zoning laws or no laws in terms of what a proper, hospitable, reputable place. I don't think there's any rules about what you can rent out as an apartment to a tenant. I don't think Texas has any fucking rules around any of that stuff. You know, Republican states don't give a fuck about poor people. And Texas, you know, is one of the... New York State would have rules and shit about, like, what an apartment needs to have and not have. And there would be, like, codes and stuff like that. But here in Texas, they're like, fuck the poor. Fuck them. Let them... You can put a cardboard box in your backyard with an extension cord coming from the house and just cut a hole in the cardboard box and have the end of the cord hanging in there, and you could probably rent that for $500 a month and call it an apartment here in Texas, because they don't give a fuck about the poor. So anyway, around here, around this area, another thing that people do is rent out campers. I showed you a couple in a previous video. But so for like $600, $700, $800, up to $1,000 a month, you can rent a camper, a fifth wheel camper, a camper with pop outs, like permanently parked somewhere. Might be in someone's yard, it might be on its own lot, etc., etc. And you can rent, and typically if you're renting a fifth wheel camper from somebody, all utilities are included, all that. So one of the options I was going to go look at, wouldn't have been too far from my job, was a freaking fifth wheel camper parked on a plot, but it had a big plot of land, and it was out kind of in the, not in the wood, well, it was kind of in the woods. It was hard to explain, but there was a big plot of land that came with this. So it was a fifth wheel camper that was fairly big. It seemed like it was about the same size as my mom's fifth wheel with the pop-outs on the side. And that thing was like a tiny house. I mean, that thing was more luxurious than what I'm living in right now. And so this one looked a little bit older and a little bit more beat, but it looked doable. And it looked like I could do something with it. It had a porch. It had like a porch built on the front of it. but it was like permanently parked, and all utilities included, a big plot of land it sits on with some privacy. I don't know if it's part of the guy's property, probably is, but like it seemed like it was off on its own. I talked to the guy a bunch of times. I set up a time to go look at it, but then this tiny house popped up. And the reason I chose this tiny house was there are about 20 different reasons why I came and looked at this instead of the camper that day. Um, so many, I've talked about some of them, but there are too many to talk about in this video. I had to choose, look at one or look at the other. I couldn't do both. So that was one, two, three. So that's 4 properties that I was actually like talking about doing. And now that I'm here, I'm bookmarking properties as I see them. And it seems like I could probably do a little bit worse than what I had in Pennsylvania. I paid $1,100 a month for a beautiful home in Pennsylvania, renting it from a really cool couple, really good people. It was a small house. It was technically a 2, maybe 3 bedroom house. I had the entire basement set up as a suite. It was furnished. It was carpeted. It was a real, like, legit furnished basement. Fireplace, carpeted floors. There was one area of the basement that had a concrete floor, and it was like I set it up as a workshop and storage area. Bicycle workshop, and wire shelving with just, my adventure gear and camping gear and all that kind of stuff stored down there. The upstairs was just beautiful hardwood floor, 2 bedrooms upstairs that were both my son's. One of was his computer and media room with a big giant beanbag chair, his video games and stuff, and the other one was his bedroom, where his bed and his dressers and that kind of stuff were in the bedroom. So he had 2 rooms, and it's just the way it worked out. Big, nice, good sized kitchen, a sunroom, living room, and then there was like a mud room. And the main entrance of the house was like, it was kind of like a mud room. That's how I set it up. I put some really rugged carpeting in there and made it, but it was a big room. I used it also to store adventure gear that was like ready to go gear, like my bug out gear and grab and go stuff. And I also made it like a giant pantry with like storable food. I had a chest freezer out there, an upright refrigerator and freezer next to the chest freezer, separate from the fridge and freezer in the kitchen. But it was walking distance, to go from to the 3 refrigerators and freezer that the 3 units were like 20 steps. It was like 20 steps to go from the kitchen to the mud room and over to the chest freezer and the other fridge. And so if I even had like an indoor grill in the mud room. There was another fireplace in the mud room. The living room had a fireplace. There was a separate building for my office. It had its own little kitchenette, a small bathroom with a composting toilet, which was kind of nice for being a prepper. If the power had ever gone down for a long period of time, at least we had a place where you could go drop it off a number 2, put some sawdust down, and like actually like use a compost. You would still be able to live rather comfortably until if the power were to go down for a month in the whole neighborhood because of who knows what. You'd still be able to go to the bathroom in relative comfort. So that was kind of a nice thing. The office was huge. The office was bigger than the tiny house I'm living in now. That was just the office, and it was, like I said, it was in a separate building on the other side of the yard. And then there was a garage that maybe you could fit 2 cars. I had a Mini Cooper. I was gonna clean out the garage and start putting the Mini Cooper in the garage for the winter, but I never really got around to that. But it was a nice garage. The garage had a wood burning stove. and it had a big, really, really big yard, and then it was surrounded by 500 acres of state game land, so it was like surrounded by woods. Beautiful home, 30-foot waterfall next to the house. I paid $1,100 a month for that. Okay. Here in Houston, I could get a house, a reasonably priced small house, could be like a double wide mobile home or just a small house with 2 to 3 bedrooms, big enough that I could live in it and my son would have his own bedroom. And if that, that's my goal, is to have a place where that, even if my son can't move down here or doesn't want to or whatever, I still want to get a place suitable for that. I can do it for, I could definitely do it for about $1,200 a month here in Houston in different areas. I don't want to live in the city. The further out you go from the city, the cheaper things get. But there are areas of the city, bad areas of the city, where prices are reasonable. And even Galveston, down by the beach, down by the water, there's some reasonably priced stuff down there too. But that's a long distance from where I am here. And I don't have a vehicle. I don't have the means to like branch out and do that right now. So, but people are asking me, why did you choose this? I'm like, I really didn't choose it. I didn't have any options. The options are all shit around where I live right now, because this is where all the rich assholes live. And unless you have $4,000 a month to spend, you're not getting anything nice. You're not getting anything decent. But there are plenty of places around here that I can go that are still Houston or close enough to Houston to still be able to make, if I had a car, I could still drive into the city and do whatever I got to do. There are plenty of places that are reasonably priced where I could live pretty well. Just doesn't seem like I could do as good of a deal as I did back in Pennsylvania when I lived there. But I could probably get pretty close. I could probably, and I'm, Lord willing, maybe he'll find a diamond in the rough and just throw it at me when it's the right time. But yeah, that's one thing. People just kept, why did you choose to do what you did? I didn't. This was, I had a bunch of shitty options and they were all terrible. I just chose the one that was the least terrible of the bunch. The one up by Lake Conroe would have been a 30-mile bike ride each way to my job instead of the 20 miles. And there's not a lot out there. There's a town with some stuff and some businesses and some stores and stuff. I could possibly get a part-time job. But once the guy started acting scammy and wouldn't show me the inside of the place, I was like, we're fucking done. No. So that narrowed it down to like 2 or 3 options, and I had like a week left to figure this all out. And so I chose this one because out of the 3 that I was still looking into, this one seemed like it could be the easiest to get into. All utilities included. All I got to do is come up with the first month's rent, security deposit. I can move right in. No bullshit. Don't got to worry about hooking up the internet. I got wireless internet for now. And I didn't have to worry. There was a bunch of things I didn't have to worry about. And I could just do it really quick. The dude gave me a 6-month lease. He asked me, we didn't even negotiate that hard. He said he wanted me to sign a year, and I think I might have made a little face, and he goes, but I'll do 6 months. So I was like, okay, that sounds good to me. And if in 6 months my financial situation blows and I'm still struggling, well, I can struggle for some more time here and be comfortable enough in my own place until I figure it all out. So I hope that answers some questions about why did you choose what you chose. It's like, no, I don't have choices. Like, as if I had a whole fucking buffet of options in front of me that I chose this out of all the plethora of things that were available to me. And I just made this conscious decision. Well, I'm just going to go with this one because out of the 100 other options that I had to pick from, this is what it was. This is what it was. I had a handful of shitty options, and I chose the one that was the least shitty of all of them, and I stand by that. It definitely was. I have a bad feeling that if I had moved into that dump, the big one, the one that's big, no air conditioning, no fucking heat. I would have had to use space heaters and window air conditioners, and all the fucking windows were like plastic, plexiglass. Like they weren't even real windows. That thing on a day like this, on a week like this where it's ice cold, that thing, like the wind would just be ripping through that place like it was made out of paper, with a bunch of big holes in it. Like I wouldn't be able to even keep one room of that place warm, and it would probably cost $6,000 a month for the electric bill just to keep one room warm. So I don't think I made a bad choice out of all the bad choices I had. And so hopefully maybe something happens in the next 6 months or whatever, and I can improve my situation. But for now, I'm just putting my head down and being thankful that I got a place that I can call my own and stay indoors and be in my own space, do videos whenever I want, go to bed, do whatever I want in my space, even though it's a tiny space, whatever. We'll just keep doing it one day at a time. With that, I'm going to let y'all go. I'm going to say peace.